Hello, and welcome to the Covert Nerd Podcast. Today we'll discuss what Amazon should do with the Lord of the Rings franchise, and then we'll take a wild ride back in time to the early 90s with Will Wheaton and look at some video games. So let's get started and nerd it up. First, I want to take a second just to thank you for listening. I appreciate the time you give me, and I hope I can make it worth your time. Now, it was rumored recently the newly acquired Tolkien rights that Amazon got would first focus on the early years of Aragorn. It seems to me like a good start. In Tolkien's collection of writings, it talks about his time growing up in Rivendell with Elrond and his sons, and of course his future wife Arwen, and he also spent time in Rohan fighting alongside Thingol, the father of Theoden, and Aragorn also spent time in the far south fighting in the Harad to put down a rebellion against Gondor. Lastly, he spent some time in the far east region of Rhûn, where in his own words he said, "The stars are strange." All of these would make great stories to tell on the small screen. It gives the die-hard Tolkien fans a look at the obscure tales of Aragorn that they've been waiting for, because Tolkien didn't elaborate a whole lot on any one of those stories. I know some fans are worried that Amazon's going to take too much artistic liberty, but I think it will be fine. You have to take it for what it is. The director's version of what Tolkien intended in the spirit of his writings. I think you have to understand that since there isn't a lot of detail about Aragorn's past, other than the few things that I mentioned, the writers of the show will have to fill in the gaps the best that they can. It's much different than the Lord of the Rings movies that Peter Jackson directed. He said many times in the commentaries that he and the cast referred to the books often for what to say and what to do in a particular scene. With only a few lines here and there about what Aragorn did from the time he was born until we see him at the prancing pony in the books, the writers will have to come up with exciting scenes for us to watch. Fans really can't complain much because it's as good a guess as anyone as to what happened. I'm excited to see what they will come up with, and will enjoy seeing what they do with Aragorn's early years and anything else that they might come up with. Speaking of that, here's what I would like to see Amazon do and some of the places I would like them to visit and the characters I would like to see them play with. First off, I'd like to see the capture of Sauron and how Sauron then corrupted the king of Numenor, which caused the downfall of Numenor and to sink into the ocean. The series would tell the story of young Isildur and his father Elendil and how they didn't succumb to Sauron's deception and led a small group to the safety of Middle-earth shortly before it fell into the sea. The story would have a lot of intrigue, and the storyline of the kings of Numenor trying to hunt down all those who remain faithful, all the while Sauron is in the background pulling the strings, would have a tremendous amount of interest. It would be a lot like Game of Thrones, in my opinion. Secondly, how about the wizards? We know about Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast, but there were also two other wizards, the Blue Wizards, and they arrived long before the books took place, about 2,000 years. What happened before Gandalf showed up in the Shire in the Hobbit book? Tolkien is vague on what the wizards did from the time that they arrived until he introduced them into the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Where did they travel? What are the details on how Saruman moved into Orthanc? Where are the other two blue wizards? Everyone likes a good wizard story, and you could focus on the other four wizards and have more freedom to go wherever you wanted with them. The Silmarillion. Oh, this one's a good one. This one would be great to see, but difficult to execute. For those of you who don't know, the Silmarillion is a book Tolkien wrote that takes place long before the Lord of the Rings series, so you get a lot of background information on some of the characters and places. It tells about the creation of the world, the creation of the races, and several other prequel-type stories. The reason this might be difficult is the story takes place over a vast span of time and involves a host of characters. It would be hard to keep the viewers engaged, and some key characters pop in for a few episodes, but then they would be gone. On the plus side, since it is TV, you can take a lot longer to tell the story, and you can explore storylines in more detail. The writers would have to laser focus on keeping the main story, which in my opinion is the conflict between Morgoth and the elves, which takes place over a span of about 400 years. My thoughts are with this is start with Morgoth stealing the Silmarils and end with his defeat. The story is a classic good versus evil, but showing how even the elves, who we have the impression as perfect, are corrupted by the lure of the jewels, just like the One Ring. Lastly, but not least, the characters of Middle-earth. You could do a series on these. Have 1 or maybe 2 episodes focus on a character from Middle-earth. Some ideas would be Elrond and his brother Elros, Galadriel, Círdain, Tom Bombadil, Bjorn, Boromir, Arwen, Denethor, Gimli, Dane Ironfoot, and the list could go on and on. So many characters who we know very little about their early years and their origins. People could explore in 1 or 2 episodes to tell a story from their past. Also, this would allow the writers to test the waters to see how popular said character is. If they turn out to be popular, you could do an entire series, or at least more episodes could be created. So there you go. For more details on Middle-earth, I suggest you read the books, of course, but there is also a YouTube channel called Men of the West. He does 10 to 15-minute videos on the places, characters, and events in Tolkien's writings. So check it out. It's called Men of the West. Again, Amazon has a plethora of content to pull from. I hope they use it wisely. What are some of your ideas? What would you like to see and why? Contact me by going to covertnerd.net, and you can find out how to reach me via email, social media, and other ways, and tell me what you would like to see. Masters of Doom: How Two Guys Created an Empire and Transformed Pop Culture by David Kushner. Masters of Doom is an amazing true story of the Lennon and McCartney of video games, John Carmack and John Romero. Together, they ruled big business. They transformed popular culture. They provoked a national controversy. More than anything, they lived a unique and rollicking American dream, escaping the broken homes of their youth to produce the most notorious successful game franchise in history, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, and Quake, until the games they made tore them apart. This is a story of friendship and betrayal, commerce and artistry, a powerful and compassionate account of what it's like to be young, driven, and wildly creative. That's the solicit for the book Masters of Doom. If you haven't listened to the book, you're missing out. Yes, I said listen. Why? Because Will Wheaton reads the audiobook, and he does such a fantastic job. If you have read the book, I suggest you listen to the audio version. Will's passion and emotion he puts into reading the book is spectacular. You can tell he was a child of the time frame that he's reading about because it's so vibrant. And I'll put the sample in the show notes from Amazon so you can hear exactly what I'm talking about. I enjoyed hearing the early years of the two Johns, how their group of programmers would take the computers home from the company they work for on Friday nights and then return them early Monday morning before the other staff arrived. They would work almost nonstop on their own games all weekend long, surviving on pizza and soda. As he's reading the story, you can hear Will and you can see the tiny pixelated characters from Wolfenstein, the dogs, the Nazi guards, and in your mind you can visualize those guys lugging those big old computers into their cars and trying frantically to go unnoticed. You'll find out many other early game ideas actually came from the D&D campaigns that they played on those weekends, and those were DM'd by none other than John Carmack himself. In fact, an entire game called Daikatana was birthed at one of these gaming sessions. So listen to it for yourself, and you won't be disappointed. Young or old will enjoy how Will brings to life the exciting story of the Masters of Doom. All right, it's shout-out time. Again, I just want to let you know those people that have engaged me on social media. The podcast, That One Time I Was Abducted, Bree and Jamie, they're on Instagram at That One Time I Was Abducted. Check them out. The Grawlix podcast with Jesse, Randy, Melanie. Check them out on growlixpodcast.com. Brandon Stillwell on Instagram at Brands Art. Last but not least, Lee Bokma on Facebook at the Art of Lee Bokma. So check those folks out. I appreciate for reaching out to me and touching base with me. Again, go to covertnerd.net to find out how you can subscribe. You can contact me via email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So go to covertnerd.net. You can find all the links there. Again, thanks again for listening. I really appreciate it. And until next time.